My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I am super excited to welcome back our special guest, Dr. Kelly Halderman. We did a version 1 of this a couple months ago, and we're going to expand upon that. But Dr. Halderman has completed her family practice medicine internship with the University of Minnesota, has a naturopathic medical degree from Kingdom College of Natural Health, where she is current academic dean of students. She holds certifications in methyl-genetic nutrition by the Nutrigenomic Research Institute, certification of the American Functional Neurology Institute in functional neurology, and she is currently working on completing her PhD in clinical nutrition, has certifications on plant-based nutrition from Cornell University. So welcome back, Dr. Kelly. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Dr. Joel. It's great to be here again.
Yes. So what I'd like to talk about is just sort of summarizing what we had talked about last time, because I did get a lot of feedback on how insightful it was for the people that watched it, but there was a couple of more question marks that were raised. So we talked about, as you know, I work with people that are suffering with fatigue and exhaustion and HPA axis dysfunction and adrenal fatigue. And we talked about the role that detoxification plays on that. So if we can get into that and pick your brain in terms of, you've coined a term called Detoxification 2.5, but now we also have 0, 1, 2, 2.5, and 3. So kind of catch us up in that and what all that means.
Sure. So traditionally, we were taught in medical school, chiropractic school, the phases of detoxification were 1, 2, and 3. In 2008, researchers discovered phase 0, and phase 0 is basically entrance into a liver cell or a kidney cell. So just for simplicity's sake, let's just focus on the workhorse of detoxification, which is the liver. So you have your toxin, and your toxin can be an exobiotic, which is referred to as a xenobiotic. That can be drugs, toxins, it can be dietary substances. And you can also an endobiotic. And endobiotics are things like thyroid hormone, cholesterol, other things that we make or we have in our bodies like vitamins, and they need to be detoxified as well. So they move in to the liver cell through the movement phase 0, okay? And then once they get into the liver, they undergo phase 1. Phase 1 is oxidation, reduction, hydrolysis. The components are made a little bit more reactive, and so phase 2 has to step in. And the goal of phase 2 detoxification is to make those phase 1 products water soluble. And so we're hooking on molecules such as sulfur glucose, sulfation, methylation, glucuronidation, amino acid conjugation. We're hooking something onto that molecule, that toxin, in order to get it into the bile, right? So that movement of that nicely packaged phase 2 toxin into the bile, where we would have it be excreted, and that would be referred to as phase 3, that movement through that door is called 2.5 detoxification. And we talked about how that can get actually shut down under states of inflammation. So when I was sick with Lyme disease, and I actually was diagnosed with MS, when I was sick with Lyme disease, well-meaning practitioners were slamming my body with things that were upregulating phase 1 and phase 2, trying to open up my detox pathways. Well, my phase 2 door was shut. I was inflamed. My gut was horrible, and gut inflammation, LPS, endotoxin, will also shut down that door. All these things in my body were not, I had Lyme disease, so they were shut down for a good reason. So the toxins that were being made, the phase 1 and phase 2 upregulation, they're going right back into my blood. And I was feeling horrible, brain fog, acne, weight gain. I was falling apart. My adrenal glands were suffering, all the inflammation. And so what really helped me was when I discovered that I actually fixed phase 2.5, and that made all the difference. The weight came off, skin's glowing, my gut's working really well. And so I really want to shout it from the rooftops that phase 2.5 comes first. We have to fix phase 2.5. We have to look at inflammation in our patients. We have to always look at their gut function, look at their estrogens. High bad estrogens will shut down phase 2.5 as well. And so will a couple other things, and I'm sure we'll revisit them as we talk.
No, that's awesome. So just to summarize that 2.5 is the window for phase 1 to go into phase 2. Is that correct? Or phase 2 to go into phase 3?
Phase 2 to phase 3. So if you think of the exit strategy out of the liver, yep. Exit strategy into the bile, yep.
Gotcha. Sorry, that's why. Okay, so as far as the 2.5, there's a bunch of things that will slow that down. That has a lot to do with adrenals being tired as well. So can you get into that a little bit in terms of, hey, how do I know if my 2.5 is slow, or what are the things that would impact that I would think that that's something that pertains to me?
Sure. So my partner, Dr. Eric Balkavich, he was asked this question. He said, an interviewer asked him, and he said, what percentage of patients do you think that this phase 2.5 may be impaired? And he literally said, pretty much all of them. Because if you have something going on in your body physiologically, let's go back to bile. Let's go back to how important bile is. Bile plays a role in thyroid hormone regulation, in cholesterol metabolism, in gut function, the migrating motor complex. It keeps your bile keeps your gut very acidic so that pathogens aren't ruling in there. So really when your bile metabolism, and this is what we're talking about too, because phase 2.5, it's the movement through, but it's also manufacturing bile and getting it into the liver. And it's also, that's coupled with phosphatidylcholine status. So I don't mean to cast this big wide net of who this could be affecting, but yet it is so critical. The very constructs of bile, what it does physiologically, are so far reaching. I know that when I was in medical school, I really didn't appreciate the wonderfulness of this golden acidic sludge as much as I did. And I started to learn about that from the shoulders I stand on, the giants like Dr. Eric Balkavich, and really looking at the studies. I mean, if you look at the studies, if your bile isn't flowing, you're in trouble. I will say that there was a paper published Halloween 2018, just a couple weeks ago, that linked bile acid metabolism issues with MS. Interesting. So really, and I answer that question in all honesty. I have yet to have a person in my care where their bile flow couldn't use a little help.
Right. So and then when I first started to get into adrenal fatigue, and I was suffering myself with exhaustion, and then I've later learned that it's not so much the adrenals don't produce; there's a feedback loop, and there's a lot of other mechanics that impact the way that we handle stressors. But the bottom line is that stressors being multi-folded in terms of chemicals, toxins, sprays, stress from family and relationships, work traumas. So would it be fair to say that those same things that would impact an HPA axis would be the same things that would close down a 2.5 window kind of thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
And then you're looking at the orchestrators of inflammation. I have learned in the past year are the mast cells, and there's a lot of inflammation that goes on in different pathways, Fenton reactions and things. But if you're constantly insulting your mast cells and they're constantly needing to degranulate, they degranulate things like TNF alpha, IL-6, and those are nasty cytokines, and they're spurring on inflammation. The histamine that's coming off of your mast cells, it's actually degranulating. It's degranulating the mast cell. It's just a vicious cycle. And getting cut off in traffic can degranulate your mast cells. So, if you're mad at your mother-in-law, but everything else is perfect in your life, it's still going to cause inflammation. It's still going to shut down these essential pathways that we're talking about for adrenal glands, essential pathways for detoxification as well.
And so for the layperson, when that happens, when we detoxify, we physically got to remove it from the body. Is that basically what's happening? Right.
That is right. And the workhorse is the bile. The bile carries those toxins to the toilet, through the intestine to the toilet. Yep.
Right. Okay, great. So the other thing we mentioned that on our last talk was a lot of people that asked me about this, where it resonated with them, was if you can go over again, for those that do glutathione and it doesn't work for them. So tell us how that's related to the 2.5 window and what's going on there.
Sure. So I have personal experience with this where, again, well-meaning, brilliant practitioners, I was in their care and they were doing the best that they knew. I would take glutathione for some time and feel really good. Like, wow, this is great. And then just hit this wall where I really think it was starting to make me feel worse. And then I'd try it again. And sure enough, I'd get the same response. And what was happening is that if your 2.5 is compromised, if the window is really, really small, the door is really small because of inflammation and things that are just making that very small, getting those toxins out. If you step on the gas and create more phase 2 products that need to get out the door and they can't, they're going to go back into your blood and you're going to feel not good. You're going to have brain fog. You can have, again, it can manifest in many different ways. Weight gain. We hold on to weight because it's protecting us. Why would your body want to lose weight if you need it to store toxins? I see the weight fly off when we get the 2.5 door open and we get the toxins flowing into the bile and the bile traversing the intestines to get into the toilet. That's our ultimate goal, is into the toilet. So does that kind of answer that question, Dr. Joel?
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. That's awesome. So as far as it's just basically you haven't fixed the mechanism and it's just forcing more more volume into a deaf ear, so to speak, and it's not registering. It's not being able to go anywhere. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I will say that in the past month, since we've spoke, I have actually discovered the gene that codes for the MRP2. So that's part of that door, that 2.5 door. And so interestingly enough is that when I went back and I looked at my bad detoxers, or really people that it just seems like whatever we do, we're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you were just really not, then 2 and then 1. We weren't really getting anywhere. They have tiny little 2.5 doors. That's the way they were born. So of course they're going to be bad detoxers. They can't get the toxins out. They can have perfect phase 1, perfect phase 2, and maybe even a lower toxic load. Maybe those patients who try so hard, they eat organic, they don't have bad deodorant on, they do everything right, but it's not fair because they might be comparing themselves who have a giant 2.5 door, and those people can smoke and drink and whatever, and all the toxins go flying out. That gene is called ABCC2. A is in apple, B is in boy, C is in Charlie, C is in Charlie, 2. There are 3 RS numbers that are clinically relevant, and I'm going to give them to you guys. I haven't given them out, but here we go. So RS 3740066, 717620. So that's the next one. So the next one starts with a 7, 717620. And the last RS number is 2273697. So it would be interesting if you have some weight that you can't lose, or you have an illness you can't get over with. It would be interesting to just look and see, like, do you have any SNPs? Do you have any SNPs in there? And then you can talk to Dr. Joel and he can help guide you through what to do. I will say that caloric restriction by 35% will help those MRP2s, will support them. And there was a paper that came out that also said that St. John's wort will also increase expression of MRP2. Now be careful with St. John's wort. That's something you definitely want to talk to your healthcare provider about. It's not good for everyone. It has a lot of interactions with medication. So I'm just citing this study for educational purposes, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing that, for sure. So what that means to a lot of people that aren't in the know, there's a lot of people that listen to this and then they're really smart. As you know, you work with patients that you got to make sure you know what you're talking about, because they'll know more than you. Yeah. So that thirst for knowledge always continues and goes and goes and goes. So then you do a genetic report, and then there's an RS number that describes the specific gene. And if that gene and enzyme is altered in terms of its expression or its efficiency to work, either a plus minus, which means one parent has that expression, or a plus plus, both parents do, then those specific genes that you were mentioning would make that 2.5 window or door a lot smaller. So they would be genetically set up to not be good detoxers, is basically what we're saying.
Great summary. Absolutely.
Right. So then the other summary is that research shows that if you lower your caloric burden by 35%, did you say, or 30%?
35.
And there's ways that you can go about doing that. I like the bmrcalculator.com, and then you just click in there your height, your weight, your age, your sex, and it comes up with what your basal metabolic rate is. There's a way to do a correction factor where you times it by how active you are. So let's say you have 2,000 calories at rest and then another 400 or 500 at activity level. So let's say, for easy math, 3,000 calories, and then you need to bring that down about 1,000 to be in that in that 33% range, and that will help. And then the other things that will help is St. John's wort, but you got to be careful with that because of some of the impact that with serotonin, or what's the concern with the St. John's wort?
I believe there's some mild contraindications when someone is on an SSRI. Again, don't run out and get it. Go to your health care practitioner and talk to them about that before you start.
Right. And then you had one. What was the third one in there as well that you had that was supportive for that?
So on the other side of supporting not just the MRP2, but the whole manufacturing of bile. The manufacturing of bile comes down to looking, and if you're genetically savvy, you can look at your PANC genes to see if there's any mutations or in those, and that can affect, can you actually make bile? Because let's say you have a perfect MRP like that what I just said, those aren't affected, but you have a propensity to not be able to actually make bile, and that's again the PANC and the ACAT. Then that's going to be a problem. So, I designed a product to help not only myself. I don't have a gallbladder. My PANC genes stink, and so do my ACAT. They're all bad. So, of course, I don't have a gallbladder. Everything was messed up from the beginning. So, I created a product that is good for people with gallbladders as well, but it has bile support in there. So, there's taurine and glycine to help actually make the bile. You can take pantethine, which will also help make the acetyl-CoA. And supporting the ACAT is a little bit tricky, but it can be good. The ketogenic diet's pretty good for that. And then actually pushing the bile through. So artichoke and bitter herbs. So that's in the 2.5 detox product that I created as well. And that'll actually help just squeeze that bile out. And then we always want to think about phosphatidylcholine status. So in the people I work with, I like to check phase angle. So if anyone out there is familiar with that, if your doctor has a phase angle device, you can look at that and kind of get an indirect idea of your phosphatidylcholine status, because you need phosphatidylcholine for your bile to be fluid. Have you heard of people with their sludgy bile, or they had cholestasis of pregnancy, or they have that right upper quadrant pain? So that can be just a phosphatidylcholine deficiency. So of course, foods are the best sources, but not everyone can eat eggs and almonds and things. So there's a lot of good brands, and Dr. Joel can help you with that as well. But that's a really important piece of having your phase 2.5 work.
So lots of nuggets in there for sure. So as far as sometimes it's too much information in terms of, okay, I have these genetic SNPs. Am I screwed for the rest of my life? And you're really saying you're not. It's lifestyle related. I've said, like, lowering your stress footprint and obviously eating healthy foods. Of course, we have these nutritional supports that you've put together. And I think from the last time that we talked till now, they're actually available, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So when I was taking intestinal binders, because intestinal binders will actually they're like your insurance policy. So if your bile is actually flowing and you have your toxins that were escorted in, and you're trying to get them out to the toilet, you want to make sure that they get there. And a lot of times what happens is that our body works, especially with mercury, works really hard. We get it in the bile, and then all of a sudden it gets reabsorbed. It's called enterohepatic recirculation. And then it hits your brain and other things, and is not good. So if you're working at trying to lower your toxic load, and and you're not binding, it can kind of be, it's where you really want those binders in there. And I wanted something that's comprehensive. So, like chlorella, it'll bind biotoxins and metals. So people will say, well, get on chlorella. Well, what about the mold and the LPS? So what I did is I created a comprehensive. It has activated charcoal, has chlorella, it has the bentonite clay, and it has sodium alginate. It's covering a lot of bases. So whatever you're throwing into the bile, hopefully it's capturing and helping it get into the toilet. So that's called phase 3 complete. Now, if your practitioner doesn't have access to that, and I sent Joel a free bottle of it, so he does, or if you just prefer to take them piecemeal, I don't care. Like, I just want people to know that there's you have to be careful when you really do start to push your bile. Let's say you're starting to make bile and your toxins are going in there. I just don't want anyone to suffer because the toxins went back into their body. So I just want to make people aware of that. And then again, the phase 2 product, it just helps manufacture your bile. It has some choline in there for a phosphatidylcholine support, and it helps move the bile. And if you want to just use bitters work too to move the bile. But the workhorse in my product is the artichoke combined with the bitters. There's a lot of research that would support that. And so really excited that those are out and ready to be bought. And for myself personally, I don't have a gallbladder, as I alluded to, so I'll be taking those with my meals as well, because I just really need that help to get bile moving.
So the phase 2.5 is the one that you're taking with the meal, and then the phase 3 complete would be how long after would you do that? At
nighttime. Typically, the protocol is for 4 to 6 weeks. You'd want to take about 4 of the 2.5 about an hour after dinner. So 4 capsules of the 2.5 after dinner. And then an hour later, you're going to take 4 of the intestinal binders. Because imagine you took 2.5, it opened up the 2.5 door, and then you want to bind those toxins. So an hour later, you want to take that phase 3. Don't take it with other supplements. Don't take it with medication. A binder will bind. So be careful with that. And then if you need more support for bile, which I obviously do, you can take the 2.5 with your meals, because it's going to help make bile, move bile.
Got you. Okay. And then as far as what would they'd be feeling better movements, they'd be feeling, what would be some of the things that they would be seeing some improvements with? How would they know it's working?
Well, I think it comes down to what that person's dealing with. So, let's say that this is a perfectly healthy person. They feel really well. They've recovered from adrenal fatigue. Everything's going well, but there's still a couple pounds that they just cannot lose. I really hope that this is going to open up those doors, really help those toxins get out, and have the body say, oh, we don't even need that weight anymore. We don't need to be protected from that anymore. Personally, digestion, it comes down to digestion. It comes down to absorbing my fat soluble vitamins. If my bile isn't moving, I'm not going to absorb my vitamin D, vitamin A. And I'm really kind of obsessed with minerals and vitamins at this point. So I'd like to see my fat soluble vitamin levels go up just by really supporting the bile.
Right. And I say that too, in terms of, I did a presentation the other day where stress will impact the weakest link, right? And so a lot of people will say, well, I don't feel like I have leaky gut. My gut health is fine. And then other people, so like the same thing with what you're saying is you do the 2.5 support, you do the 3 support, and next thing you know, brain fog goes away, right? Because they're clearing out the sort of the whole bile. It's not being reabsorbed, and their joints feel better, and they're getting better sleep and so forth. So that's really what we're seeing with all of this, correct?
Correct.
So I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot because I always try to make sure that whoever's listening to this there's someone at my door and they're knocking. I'm like, I'm not going to answer the door. I'm doing a podcast right now. So anyways, as far as putting you on the spot, what I like to do, Kelly, is I upload this to iTunes. I upload this to my website. I upload this to YouTube and Facebook. And they always ask me, hey, like, is there a special promotion, like a 10% off or any special deals, can you put something together for me like that, like a special coupon? No pressure or anything like that, not to put you on the spot.
For you, Joel, I mean, absolutely. How do you say no, right? Okay, so yeah, I don't know what that will be. Can we call? Well, see, I have a cat who's running around.
Right.
I don't know what that exactly will be, the promotion, but somewhere in the 5% off or 10% off. You know, for your patient.
Well, you know, usually it's a good little thing, like, hey, if I can start with a little bit of a discount and then get used to it and see how it works. So that's awesome. So what were some of the other things that you mentioned that you learned about? Because you and I like to geek out a little bit, and I don't have much to geek out on my side of the things for you. But any new stuff that you learned about these new?
I learn from you every day, Joel. I like tune in to learn like what I need to know. So no, you definitely, I'm very grateful for your knowledge base is enormous. Like you're one of probably the most gifted practitioner I met in 2018. And I'm really glad to know you, and your patients are so darn lucky.
Thank you.
Yeah, what did I learn? So I think what I learned, I love that I found that gene that ties with the actual 2.5. So, and I'm not about treating the SNPs. I don't treat the SNPs, but I really like that a lot. I will say that one of my new favorite supplements, and I really am a minimalist. I'm really not take a million things per day, but TUDCA, maybe we talked about that, TUDCA. Man, the studies on that nutrient are amazing. It actually helps quell microglial activation. So in that study where they had the bile flow impacted, and that being a big finding in MS, they actually been putting these patients on TUDCA, and that's it's quelling the TNF alpha, the IL-6. It's helping with brain fog, brain inflammation. So it's not just a gut thing, and it actually reinforces this idea we talk about, Joel, of gut brain. You know, they are connected, people, like 100%. So I'm having a lot of success with people who their weakest link is their gut, and using the TUDCA, which is just a bile acid. But the studies, I'm floored actually by all the things, and it actually helps with blood sugar. It helps diabetes. It helps other things. My new passion is nicotine riboside, NR. So those, and I'm obsessed with CERT3. So we could probably do a whole, conversation on that. I'm obsessed with NAD and those pathways. So maybe we could do part 3 and kind of nerd out on some of those pathways. And it's been a game changer, big time game changer for me. So that would be a cool discussion.
Did you put that in your formulas, or you weren't able to do that?
So there's only two companies that have patents on the nicotinamide riboside, and I don't know the names off the top of my head, but you can't really get a hold of it unless you have millions of dollars at this point. But those pathways and longevity, which adrenal fatigue, inflammation, it's super interesting, and then we could have a really good conversation and a call to action for your patients on this information. It's brand new, so
that's awesome. Yeah, so I'll share with you just a little tool that I got. It's the role of stress and the HP axis in chronic disease management. It's awesome. It's made by the Point Institute by Thomas G. Gillums, PhD. And there's actually a couple of enzymes that code for the whole the glucocorticoid receptors that I'm kind of getting into as well. So I'll hopefully be able to share that with you. The other thing we wanted to talk about, just sort of maybe setting up for part 3, would be MTOR and autophagy. We kind of talked about that a little bit. And so can you just give us what that is? Because that's sort of the brand new biohacking type of thing, intermittent fasting, full fast mimicking diets, getting the janitorial cells of the body, anti-aging. Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm intrigued with your knowledge on that. And I said to Jason yesterday, I do these podcast, not for the people, but for me to learn and then be able to, say, oh yeah, I'm trying to help you too. But no, seriously, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the MTOR pathway, MTOR stands for mammalian target of rapamycin, which is the pathway is the metabolic master controller. So you think of our body in catabolism and catabolic state, anabolic state, not cannibalism. You think of building and then you think of cleanup. So mTOR is the pathway of building. If when the sperm and the egg met, if mTOR wasn't in full bore, we wouldn't be here. So mTOR is very important. But what's happening is that mTOR is being overdone in our environment. The Wi-Fi, the glutamate issues, the protein drinks people have. There's a list of things that actually drive mTOR. And what happens is that when mTOR is overdriven, it shuts down autophagy. The Nobel Prize was awarded in 2015 to Dr. Oshinuri for his work in autophagy. So it is extremely important, a Nobel Prize in medicine for this. It's actually the cleanup crew. Just think of the cleanup crew. And that when your autophagy is in full bore, you're really cleaning up your cellular debris. Everything's really spick and span. And when your mTOR is really overdriven, your autophagy is shut down. And you can imagine what can happen when your autophagy is shut down. Neurological problems, cancer, spurring on of Lyme disease and mold and things that your body should just be able to get rid of. But if your body's not able to actually, chew up and digest those end products, even products of when you kill things like Lyme and mold, then you're going to get stuck. You're going to have chronic disease issues. So my work in the Nutrigenic Research Institute was to look at those mTOR overdrivers and really just start to educate patients on all the things that can push mTOR because they're cumulative. So if we're doing a lot of dairy, a lot of EMF, the glutamates, actually methylfolate will push mTOR, push. It's like, okay, some of those things are good, but we have to balance them. So you're right. The intermittent fasting and fasting in general will push autophagy. Berberine, lithium, resveratrol will push autophagy. And I'm excited about coupling that autophagy push with some of the NAD pathways and some things that we're probably going to touch on in another podcast because those are longevity. Now, I think of myself as an anti-aging enthusiast, and I'm not talking about anti-aging, no wrinkles. I'm talking about having a strong, healthy body when I'm 80 years old. I don't want my parts to wear out. So I think balancing mTOR autophagy is absolutely critical to health. It's critical to every condition that we work with, that we help along. So I'm really glad you brought it up.
Yeah, it's almost like autophagy is to sort of the cellular level as the bile flowing is to the system level in that sense. Would it make sense? Like
yeah,
in terms
absolutely.
of, yeah, and I guess, and that's where we come full circle. I always like to say it's like a Seinfeld episode. We try to tie all the loose ends at the end here, where basically we've talked the whole time about the role of getting toxins out of your body and making sure you're not just, going bombarding into taking this and that to help with your detox pathways if you don't understand what's the burden in the first place, and making sure that your windows are open or your doors are open to get them into the liver, get them processed in the liver, get them out of the liver. But at the cellular level, you have all of those same stressors that impact that impact the ability of the mitochondria and the cell itself and the way that the genes are transcribed in order to do a cellular repairing at the cellular level, and it all kind of works together, kind of thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's about honoring the perfect physiology that God gave us. I think that when we have these ideas that we can take 1 million supplements and that's going to fix what's going on, we have to support the God-given physiology. We have the autophagy. We just need to learn how to, not shut it off. We have the mechanism of bile flow. We have the phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, out through the 2.5 to the 3. But it happens that we live in this toxic world, and inflammation and stress, and it just bombards us, and it shuts down those natural detoxification. And that's why I like the way you practice, Joel, because you talk about let's first of all, let's get these foundations right, and that is so critical. I just go back to the foundations every visit with people in my care. Just go back to the foundations, because again, those are critical.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I sent you, make sure you listen to those Dr. Marshall things, because I am honestly Forrest Gump with those. I listen to those over and over and over again. And one of the things that he talked about initially is, the patient's willingness and desirability and believability that they deserve to be healthy. They can be healthy now. They can, they are doing everything in their power to be healthy now. They can be loved now. If you have that resonant and that energy that, you've been sick for so long and you don't know if you can ever get healthy again, or there's uncertainty, that's not gonna, the 2.5 and the 3.0, all those things aren't gonna work if that stuff's not working either. And that's where I think you gotta, really keep it as complicated as this conversation is. It's very simple in terms of just, do what your grandma would tell you to do, right? In that regards.
Absolutely. So practitioners, we can handle the hard stuff, right? I mean, we're having this really high level conversation. Rest assured, we got it. But really, a lot of this is in the listener's hands, the person who's watching this, and really making sure you realize that there can be barriers in thought processes and other things. So good point.
Right. And we talked about that. I'm sure you're still loving the brain tap, right?
Oh, absolutely. Game changer.
Well, it is. So that was my hour of my Facebook Live last night, where I was, and then it didn't save. So as far as how do they get in contact with you? I know you have an awesome website. So tell us how they get in contact with you.
Sure. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that. But my website is Dr. Kelly Beat Lyme. So DrKelly, beatlime.com. I put articles that I publish. I have a really nice article for a layperson on how to dampen your mTOR so your body will naturally kick on the autophagy. It's very simple, very simple. And doctors can print it out and hand it. You can put your name on it. I don't care, as long as people learn how to better take care of their bodies. So that's how you contact me. I'm beyond booked with patients right now. I'm booked out so far. You know how that is. So it's a little bit hard for me to actually take a peek at like genetics and things right now, but hopefully that'll be opening up a little bit sooner. But yeah, if you have any questions, you can email me on that website.
And that's new, right? Because that wasn't your website before, was it?
No, that's pretty new. So, and we're constantly trying to revamp things. So
that's really cool. And then the two other parting suggestions were the 3.0 complete. Is that what it's called?
Phase 3 complete detox from professional health products. Yep.
Okay. And then the other one was, what was the other one called?
Phase 2.5 complete detox by professional health products.
And you recommend both of them. Is there one more than the other you would recommend? More than three? Yeah.
Some will say that you're wasting your money if you're just going to pour binders into your body, if you're super inflamed and you're not even pushing toxins into your gut. But it's not black or white, right? So, maybe you shouldn't take 4 of the phase 3, unless you're doing some things to open up your 2.5. But it's not worthless. Your body's still going to put toxins into your bile, and it's going to go through. I would prefer that, a doctor sit down with a patient and kind of assess their situation. Please reach out to me. Please contact me if you have any questions, practitioners, on how to use this the best way. But I think of it as if you're going to try and dampen your inflammation, you're going to open up your phase 2 door, you're going to need a binder. So I would say don't use the 2.5 if you're not going to have that insurance policy to grab those toxins.
Right. And that's the last thing I would say too, in terms of a lot of smart listeners on here, but realize that you're the patient and your job is to live your life and not, put your, head in the books and try to figure this out on your own. And not only that, when you learn the genetics like we do, which we're still learning and always will be learning, the more you learn about it, the more you realize it comes down to what are the environmental or the epigenetic things that are ultimately causing these genetic susceptibilities to be relevant in the first place, which is that's where you need that extra support, where you need to talk to someone like us who can actually customize, and that's what I say, we customize a recovery protocol based on what are your unique epigenetic factors that happen to create a perfect storm with the inhibitors of the enzymes that aren't working properly, that don't allow for proper methylation activity to take place, which is over 250 cellular activities. And people always ask me, why would I do a genetic test? Well, we want to see how susceptible you are to being able to turn off the expression of an infection, being able to regenerate your DNA, being able to repair your cells, being able to make neurotransmitters to deal with stress, being able to make hormones, being able to clear all those out. It's pretty important. But at the same time, once we get past understanding the genetic component, it comes down to really, how are we going to fix this environmentally with what you're doing? And having two great products for those genetic susceptibilities and the environmental perfect storms for removing toxins is really key. And then, if, like you said, eating healthy and eating less and getting good oxygen and all that stuff really is a proper mindset. So as far as parting suggestions or any parting words of wisdom that you have for us?
I would just say that, you know, this is pretty high level, and that we're just always learning. We're just like patients. We're just learning, and we're collecting all the information and doing the best that we can. And that it is your job to live as a patient, your job to do the best. And some things can be so confusing because you hear one thing and then you hear the next thing. So I'm just glad that there's practitioners like you, Joel, who I learned from. You know, that we're always looking to really help. But I think the main parting word is that what 2.5 is, it's just your biochemistry. It's just the way your body works. And all I'm trying to do with the message and the renaming of this process is really just honor what we have. And like you said, manage the epigenetics, manage the stress, manage that, because it's not like there's some magical pill out there that's going to make everything go away. There rarely is that. There rarely is. And it's helpful to have a trained practitioner to know what exactly you may need, but really, again, honoring the mitochondria, honoring what it's already doing, and just getting things out of the way, supporting them with the cofactors. And I listened to your talk about minerals and vitamins, and, you know, just giving the materials to the body is really important. So I would part ways with you with just saying that, is that, you know, if you want to get your bitter herbs from a tea, please do it. If you want to eat artichokes instead of taking it and, you know, do it. Like the sulforaphane, big time nutrient, amazing nerve 2 stimulator. The best way to get is broccoli sprouts. So good diet, good food, good air, you know, clean water. I always say that nothing trumps hydration, nutrition, rest in peace, nothing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, great. Thank you. And we will do another one. We just won't wait so long from the last time. Okay. And I thank you so much, Kelly, for giving us your time and enlightening us in what you're learning. And I look forward to our next meeting.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.